Is Doyle not coming? Can you
Oh,
call
I didn't hear.
Bonnie over
Yeah.
here?
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order for November the 4th, 2024. We need a motion to enter closed session for the reasons so stated on the agenda. Do I have a motion to enter closed session?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will move into closed session. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call this evening's Board of Education meeting to order. And we will begin with our public charge, which I will read. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy toward both school personnel and each other. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruption of the meeting. And we will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We will now observe our moment of silence. Thank you very much. All right, tonight we have several recognitions, and we're going to start out with Native American Heritage Month, and I think Dr. Lanier and Mr. Sathi, maybe? Dr. Lanier, okay.
Good evening. As we gather to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Month, it is vital for our school district to recognize the rich heritage and invaluable contributions of Indigenous communities to our society. This observance not only honors the history and culture of Indigenous peoples, but also serves as an essential opportunity for our students to engage with diverse perspectives. By incorporating Indigenous voices into our curriculum and activities, we foster respect, understanding, and inclusivity, helping to build a more equitable educational environment. Embracing this month can enrich our community, enhance students' cultural competence, and prepare them to be informed and compassionate global citizens. Let us commit to honoring this heritage and integrating these vital teachings into our schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. All right, our Exceptional Education Teacher of Excellence 2024. We have Ms. Stacy Burns, I believe, to talk about that. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm thrilled to recognize Mr. John Pierre Joubert as our NCDPI Exceptional Children Educator of Excellence for Orange County for the 2024-25 school year. Mr. Joubert has been a steadfast advocate for students' learning, inclusion, and growth throughout his years with Orange County Schools. Known for his approachable professionalism and positive spirit, Mr. Joubert has enhanced adaptive physical education services across our district through meaningful collaboration with general education, physical education teachers, exceptional children teachers, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. Serving students in every school with enthusiasm and dedication, he creates safe, supportive spaces where students feel valued and encouraged to reach their potential. Not only does he promote active, healthy lifestyles, but he also thoughtfully explains how these skills carry over into the classroom and the community. As a colleague, Mr. Joubert is generous with his time and ideas, always willing to support others. We are fortunate to have such an outstanding educator on our team. Congratulations to Mr. Joubert on this well-deserved honor.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna come.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you. We're very proud of you. Okay, and up next, we have National Career Development Month with Ms. Braxton.
Good evening to each one of you tonight. It's November. It's November 4th. We've already been celebrating National Career Development Month for 4 days. Although we celebrate Career Development Month every single day because that's what we do in public education. We're preparing students to be global society and citizens, right? So every year in November, our North Carolina governor does proclaim November as North Carolina Career Development Month. There's even a week specific in November for us to celebrate even more for those 5 days. That's November the 11th to the 15th. And then on Wednesday, November the 13th, we have specific days, and I need them to come on up closer to me. We have a specific day on November the 13th that we honor our career development coordinators in North Carolina. That's National Career Development Day. And we're really, really honored in North Carolina to have career development coordinators in all of our schools, and in Orange County, we have 2 of the very best standing right here with me. As a reminder, the mission of career and technical education is to empower all students to be successful citizens, workers, and leaders in a global economy. And career development inspires and empowers those individuals to achieve their career and life goals. It is the work of every educator to empower students with career development skills, but it's the specific work of our career development coordinators. These 2 individuals standing right here beside me, they work with their administrators, their student support staff, teachers, parents, business industry, post-secondary institutions, military, community organizations, and many other stakeholders to ensure the delivery of career development, classroom lessons, and services for each student. You will see these 2 career development coordinators in the classroom giving career development lessons. You will see them working with students to create or review their career development plans. You'll see them plan and host a career and job fair. They plan field trips to business, industry, as well as to post-secondary institutions. They're even the teacher of record for every CTE internship class, or pre-apprenticeship class or apprenticeship class. They are definitely the key stakeholders in our summer program with Summer Careers Academy, which is our construction pre-apprenticeship program that we are in collaboration with Home Builders Association and with Chapel Hill Carborough. They're even the teachers of record for each of our in-district summer interns that we've been privileged enough to have the last 3 summers. So they're very busy, and we're very grateful for them. This month, you're going to see some things on social media, and if you're around a middle school, the week of November the 18th through that week, November 18th, those 5 days, Be Proud. The Skilled Trades mobile truck will be here. That is sponsored by Home Builders Association. They will be at our middle schools that week. Every 8th grader will get to go through those simulations. And you will also be seeing our 8th graders working on career development plans. We have a grant in Orange County. That grant is through the North Carolina Community College Association, Durham Tech, and Orange County Schools. That's our career coach. Lena Miller is our career coach. She's working hand in hand with our middle school counselors to make sure that every 8th grader has a career development plan before the end of this school year. It is law, but it's also best practice, and we're really excited that we have that partnership. Tonight, I'm just really excited, right, that we get to celebrate career development, and it's just an honor. We usually hand these certificates unceremoniously to our career development coordinators on Career Development Day, but tonight I get to hand it to them tonight. Nick Montgomery, we're so appreciative of the work you do in Orange County Schools, and Stephanie Smith, we're so appreciative for you as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you, they want to. Y'all can hold your certificate in front of you.
Shannon.
Janet.
Fall.
Count of three. 1, 2, perfect. And 3.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I know what you do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And up next, we will have recognition for Veterans Day with Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. Jones, and all who are here. As everyone knows, we want to give special recognition that next Monday, our schools and offices will be closed in honor of veterans of the United States Armed Forces. Veterans Day is always observed officially on November 11th, regardless of the day of the week on which it falls. This day of honor coincides with Armistice Day and Remembrance Day in other countries, marking the anniversary of the end of World War I on the 11th hour of the 11th day of 1918, in the 11th month of 1918. Here in the U.S., it was renamed Veterans Day in 1954, and these notes from the Veterans Administration help us with this day of honor. Veterans Day does not include an apostrophe, but it does include an S at the end of veterans because it is not a day that belongs to veterans, it is a day for honoring all veterans. While those who have died are also remembered, Veterans Day is set aside to thank and honor all who served honorably in the military in wartime or peacetime. This day is intended to thank living veterans for their service, to acknowledge that their contributions to our national security are appreciated, and to underscore the fact that all those who served, not only those who died, have sacrificed and done their duty. So on this occasion, we ask everyone to join us in thanking and honoring the current and former students, staff, families, and community members of Orange County Schools who have served in our nation's armed forces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know we have several teachers in our district that are veterans, so we thank them especially. Okay.
As well as our superintendent.
And Dr. Jones, I forgot about that. So we thank you. And she can send a thank you to her husband for us as well, because they both are veterans. Okay, we need to adopt our agenda. So do I have a motion for agenda adoption? I can't speak tonight.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that is adopted. And now it is time for our public comments. Do we have public comments, Mr. Richmond?
We do. We have one tonight.
Okay.
We will now hear public comments. Speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Yielding time to other speakers is not permitted. If a speaker has written materials they would like to share, please hand them to our board clerk, Franklin McCune, and he will distribute them to the board. The purpose of public comment is for the board to hear from members of the public, not to engage in back and forth discussions. Per our policy, board members will not speak respond to speakers during the public comment session. The board greatly values public feedback and welcomes all comments regardless of viewpoint. However, please be reminded that children are often present at these meetings and that our public comment policy prohibits profanity, vulgarity, and personal abuse of any person. We ask that all comments be civil, respectful, and free of personal attacks. Any speaker who violates our public comment period or otherwise exceeds the bounds of order and decorum will be given a warning. Continued violations may result in the speaker being ruled out of order at which point we will move on to the next speaker. And our one and only speaker for tonight is Carrie Hamill.
Good evening, Board. Thank you. My name is Carrie Hamill. I'd also like to thank all the OCS teachers and other student-facing staff. You're terrific. I ask this Board to reassess and modify its current resourcing of OCS schools, staff, and classrooms, as I've taken the opportunity to try to glean from the school, all of the school improvement plans, which are on tonight's consent agenda, of what is your expected academic return on investment, or ROI, of the tens of millions of dollars that you approve, as it does not seem aimed at resulting in proficiency and beyond for all students here. I would appreciate if you could summarize from each of the schools on the school improvement plan, in addition to those that are on the low-performing schools, is that by 2013, by subgroup, how many students are going to be proficient in math? I ask that you please give me the Cliff Notes and others, that by 2030, how many students by subgroup at each of the schools are going to be proficient in English. I also ask, where on Monday does a student find a math tutor, as they ask and are not, even if they ask and are not identified? I ask, how does a student or a family learn how they can get an hour additional time of reading, being read to, as also as reading to another trained adult? Finally, the annual auditing firm report is on for today, and the regular annual auditing firm. And it brings me concern that the Child Nutrition Fund and practices are on there. Childhood hunger is something that we together can do better for, and it brings me pause that there is mention in the audit on that. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move into board comments and start with Ms. Hauser tonight. Do you have any comments for us?
Sure. First, I wanted to thank our veterans, all of them, for service. I wanted to just do a shout out to Shannon Braxton for pulling together the Business Advisory Council. It's a twice-a-year event. And in addition to the work she's doing with our career development coordinators and our kids, she's pulled together an impressive group of business leaders from throughout the community. And as part of the conversation, we talked about how we can get more opportunity. Are there other businesses that would be interested in joining the council? Are there opportunities for internships for our kids? And also, are there opportunities for our students to actually visit businesses? And I actually wondered if this is something we could put out in one of our family information announcements to recruit that. Because, you know, what you're doing is one of the great secrets of Orange County Schools. So the more we can let people know the incredible work you're doing, the better. And I'd love for us to get that message out. I also, it's a little bit, our kids were there, so it's relevant, but I have to do a shout out to United Voices of Eflin Cheeks, Mount Moriah Church, Hunter's Chapel Church, Gaines Chapel, White Cross, Eflin Methodist, the Orange County Department on Aging, and the Sheriff's Department for a trunk or treat that they hosted last week at Mount Moriah Church. And there were over 400 ghosts and witches and superheroes and princesses getting candy all night. It was just a fantastic event. And what was really great about it, it was a true collaboration. This was no one's event, and it was everyone's event. And it was just an amazing collaboration of community. Just proves it works when we decide. So just a big shout out to them.
Mr. Astor.
All right. I'd also like to thank all our veterans as well. And just to follow up on Mrs. Hauser's comments about Ms. Braxton, we did have our business advisory meeting, and we did get the opportunity to go to Union Grove Farms, and it was amazing to see their restorative practices that they're doing to restore the land and to make it usable for farming, and the methods they're using to train others on how we can use this, and seeing how they're doing these things without using chemicals or harmful products into our wastewaters. And so it was very educational. And, I do hope we get the opportunity to bring some of our high school students in to learn about what is happening here in Orange County. So thank you for bringing the advisory council to that. Did get a chance to go to the Cedar Ridge Theater's program of Voyager. I know Ms. Purcell was there as well. It was excellent. It was always good to see our students and a production that they developed themselves, which is amazing for them to think of something that occurred so long ago and what that would mean today in our environment. Also, I was just wanting to, thank New Hope Elementary on such a wonderful opening of the Family Resource Center that's available to anyone here in Orange County Schools, which allows our families to have access to any form of resources they need. And it looks like it's a wonderful partnership that we've kicked off, and I hope to see that grow throughout Orange County. Thank you.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Jobert, Ms. Smith, and Mr. Montgomery on their recognitions tonight. I've had the opportunity to work alongside of those wonderful people for many of years now, so congratulations to them, and thank you to all the vets, all of my close friends who are veterans. Dr. Jones, thank you. To my grandfathers who are no longer here, thank you. And to my father, who's an active blinded veteran member, thank you to him as well.
Ms. Dole?
I want to thank people for being here tonight and recognize the folks that Andre was just referring to, and appreciative of our veterans today. I wanted to give a shout out to the Gravelly Hill Middle School Hispanic Heritage Night. They had a lot of great community members coming and participating in that event. They had students organizing games, and they had crafts that different community members made, and I was excited to see a Latinx Ed outreach person who was super knowledgeable and open to talk about how to connect students to leadership opportunities. So I found that to be a great event.
Okay. I recently had some really great visits to a few schools, to New Hope and Cedar Ridge and Gravelly Hill, and just wanted to thank the staff there. Saw some really great strategic work happening in each of those schools, some really great instruction, and like at Gravelly Hill, seeing the integrate, which we saw in the school improvement plan, I think as well, sort of the integration of some AVID strategies across the curriculum, integration of like real writing activities in art class, like just some really good stuff happening. So that was all really exciting to see. And then, in case anyone hasn't heard, Election Day is tomorrow. And so if you haven't already early voted, it is really important to get out there and vote. And I just wanted to make sure to emphasize to if anyone is listening to this meeting, you probably already know this, but it is really important to vote all of the way down the ballot and to flip your ballot and vote on the things on the other side as well. The school bond is on the back of the ballot, and I hope folks will support that. But many of the sort of down ballot races have a huge impact on the future of public education in the state of North Carolina. The state school superintendent race, the Supreme Court and other justices. And so it's really important to get out and vote and make your voice heard, and also to vote for folks who support public education. And so I encourage everybody to do their research.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here, making time to be here. And I also want to thank all the community of our veteran community. I have family that served in all branches, and one of the conversations always, who got there first, right? So what did Wendy do this time? I attended the powwow at the Okanichi grounds. It was great to be there and seeing a lot of the community of children dancing and listening to some of the stories that are passed down for the Okinichi people. I also attended the Gravelly Hill Hispanic Heritage, and I got to play a game that I had never played before that came from Peru, so I really enjoyed that. It required patience. I also attended an Orange High School football game that was Fuquay in Orange High. I particularly went to see the program. They were honoring all the seniors that are graduating this year, and so I know a couple of kids. And I just want to do a shout out to all the, I'm going to say it wrong, color guards that they got first place. So, and I saw their beautiful dance. And lastly, I also attended the opening Family Resource Center, and I think it's great. It's a great resource for families, and I do hope that we can apply that to all schools in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I also attended the opening of the Family Resource Center at New Hope, and really didn't know what I was going to when I went there, and was very just blown away by all the things that they have in place to help families, whether you're a member of the New Hope family or just the general community. Just outstanding work that they're doing to help our families in the area. So hats off to them for a great job. I, too, as Mr. Atherton said, attended the production of Voyager at Cedar Ridge last week, and it was a wonderful performance, really performed well and very profound, that the students wrote it and acted in it, and just, they were going to competition with it on Friday, and I haven't heard how that turned out, but they should have won first place if they didn't. Mr. Atherton and I voted that night that they needed to.
Braxton just said they're going to states.
They're going to states, great. We hadn't heard anything, so that's wonderful, because it was just simply wonderful. I was not able to go to the Hispanic Heritage Night at Gravelly Hill, but I heard from a teacher how wonderful it was and how many people were there, and that there were more people there than generally go to these. And so we need to find out their secret and get them to all the others. But I heard that it was absolutely fantastic, so hats off to them as well. And that's all that I have. So Dr. Jones, do you have any comments?
I do. Good evening, Chair Purcell, Vice Chair Richmond, members of the board, students, staff, and community members. I want to take a moment to highlight two schools. New Hope Elementary School, who recently was recognized as being one of the top 10 elementary schools in the state for closing the achievement gap. And Orange High School, who was recognized recently for increasing student college readiness while increasing access to a diverse population of students in their advanced placement courses. This is not the work of one or two individuals. It takes a strong team of teachers, staff, and administrators, and support from the community to obtain this type of success. So congratulations to those two schools. We have some great things happening here in Orange County Schools, as each board member kind of described the things that are happening. We see recognitions that are folks that are being recognized here. So I'm pleased with the direction that we're headed in as a district. This evening, you'll hear financial and academic updates from staff. We hope that you see our commitment to improving student outcomes and achievement outcomes while also being fiscally responsible. I always say that this work is not easy, but it's impossible without the hard work of our staff, especially our teachers and the support of our community. Tonight, I want to give a special thank you to our teachers for embracing the shifts that have occurred to best support our students, and to thank them for also providing honest feedback when we engage them in the work that we're trying to do, and for showing up every day to do the work. I also want to say thank you to our public schools strong team here in Orange County. I see them almost everywhere in the community at an event. They always have on their T-shirts, they're passing out stickers, getting, engaging with our staff and with community. I don't think they miss a board meeting. But your support has not gone unnoticed, and I just wanted to acknowledge you. As this work gets harder every year for staff, we really thank you. It really takes the support of the community, and we just thank you for being here and being in our corner. That concludes my comments.
Thank you to everyone for your comments. Okay, we move down to the consent agenda, which is long again tonight. I think Mr. Atherton has one thing he would like to say about one policy.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the last item on the policy 7730, employee conflict of interest, that's being requested to waive second reading. And the purpose of that is the wording of it does not allow our teachers to tutor for pay after school. And we definitely want to address that under district programs to allow that. So the request tonight is to waive that. The others are following the standard policy of first read, second read, but I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the change that Mr. Atherton requested? And do I have someone that will?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consent is approved. All right. We move into our work session, which is the financial audit. And Ms. Rath and Dr. Jones, I believe you are the presenters here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
North Carolina General Statute requires that public school units have their individual accounts audited annually, as well as the school's individual accounts audited. Anderson, Smith, and White is the Board of Education's independent auditors, and they have completed our audit for the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2024. Dale Smith, a partner with Anderson, Smith, and White, is online with us this evening and is going to present to you now the highlights from that final audit. Dale?
I can't hear you.
It's muted or there's no audio.
We can't hear you. Mr. Smith, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. You may be muted. No. Do we need to turn the volume?
Dale, it looks like it's something on your side. We're good here. May I suggest that you exit and re-enter?
Can y'all hear?
Go.
Will this work?
Will this work?
Yep.
We're getting a little bit of feedback, but
You want to try it?
turn your speaker off and then just utilize what's on the phone. Turn your speaker off on your computer.
Okay. How is that any better?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about the difficulty. I think each of you should have a copy of the PDF for the audited financial statements. And there's also an 8-page financial, sorry, a little bit of feedback, but I'll adjust. The financial statement summary is what we'll be going over this evening. And if anyone has any questions at any point, just feel free to interrupt at any time. So if you would turn to page 1. And the audit covers 2 main areas that we're required to issue reports on. The financial statement section and the compliance section. And within the detailed financial statements, there are 4 letters that we issued that pertain to these 2 audit areas. And these 4 letters are summarized on page 1. The report on the financial statements is the first letter. And it's a clean, unmodified opinion. And that's exactly what the board wants to receive. And this means that based on our audit procedures, we feel the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements are reliable and that the financial statements are free from any material errors or misstatements. And the next 3 reports pertain to the compliance section of the audit. And these 3 reports relate to various detailed testing we have to perform on the internal controls of the district and the district's compliance with applicable state and federal laws and regulations related to the state and federal funding that flows through the district. And the first of these reports is the internal control and compliance letter, and it's included on pages 63 and 64 of the detailed financial statements. And we don't issue an opinion on internal control, but we do report on any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that are noted in our testing. And we're happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls detected in our audit. And there was no non-compliance noted in our audit, such as budget violations or other violations of local or state policy. The last 2 reports are reports on major federal and state programs. And these letters are included on pages 65 through 68 of the detailed financial statements. And during the audit, we performed detailed testing of COVID Education Stabilization Fund, the Child Nutrition Program, the State Public School Fund, and state CTE funds. And both of these reports are clean, unmodified opinions as well. So all 4 of these letters are clean, unmodified reports, which is exactly what the board wants to receive. And based on our testing, the district's financial records are very transparent. We select a large number of payroll and general disbursement transactions for our testing, and management was able to provide proper backup documentation for all of those samples that we selected. Okay, does anyone have any questions on this page?
No.
Okay, let's go to page 2. And page 2 provides a 3-year summary of general fund assets, liabilities, fund balances, as well as a 3-year summary of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And all amounts come from the district's audited financial statements for the current and prior 2 years. We'll be focusing on the far right column that's highlighted for June 30th, 24. See, and up at the top, ending cash balances were $4,818,366, which comprised the majority of the fund's total assets of $4,832,001. And liabilities totaled $1,782,176. And if you take assets minus liabilities, you get the district's ending fund balance as of June 30th, which was $3,049,825. And you should see that number right there in the middle above the solid line. And as you can see, looking at the very bottom, this amount represents a decrease of $369,932 from the previous year's fund balance. With $1.5 million used in the 23 year and $370,000 of fund balance was used in the current 2024 year. And these two amounts represent a combined decrease of about $1.9 million over the past 2 years. So I think we discussed last year during the audit report that the district had used a significant amount of fund balance over the 22 and 23 years, and that you needed to reduce that level of fund balance usage. And y'all did a great job of doing that this past year with reducing that usage down to $369,932. And I think as we discuss every year, the district needs to maintain adequate fund balance reserves for cash flow purposes and for potential emergency needs that may arise, such as hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, or other unforeseen circumstances. But I think as of June 30th, 24, the district's fund balance is at an adequate level. Did anyone have any questions? Okay, let's go to page 3. Okay, and page 3 provides a 3-year summary of the school food service fund, kind of set up in the same format as the general fund we've just looked at. And we'll be focusing on the far right column. If you look down at the very bottom, you can see that the school food service program reported a loss for the year of $84,218. And in the previous year, for June 30th, 23, you can see that the program reported a loss of $139,986. So the district reported a year-over-year improvement of about $56,000 when comparing 24 to 23. So that's good to see. And even with the reported loss this past year, the program still has very good cash balance reserves of over $1.8 million at year end. And you can see that cash balance total at the very top of that column for June 30th, 24. So I think overall the program continues to be in good financial condition for the year ended June 30th, 24. It would just be good if the program can try to reduce expenses or increase revenues a little bit to try to get the program to a complete break-even level. Did anyone have any questions? Okay, if not, let's go to page 4. And page 4 provides a 3-year summary of findings and question cost. And as you can see, there were no findings or question costs reported for any of the past 3 years. Okay, and let's go to page 5. And page 5 is what we consider a management letter. And as part of the audit, we analyzed the district's internal controls over various financial processes. And we did note a couple of areas pertaining to child nutrition, free and reduced meal determinations, and individual school cash receipts where we feel controls could be strengthened. And these 2 areas are summarized in this letter. And we've already gone over these items in detail with management. And I think that implementation has been made to fix both of these issues. I didn't plan to go into any detail on these items tonight unless someone had a specific question.
I have one question.
Okay.
I was curious why in your report you didn't include the child care fund in your overview. It's in the page 62, but it's not in your highlight of the funds.
We typically talk about the general fund and the school nutrition fund, but we can definitely talk about the child care fund. Let me grab my report. It's my understanding the child care fund is being discontinued for the fiscal year 24-25.
That is correct.
And if you look at the results for the child care program, you would look at page 62, and the program reported a profit for the year of $46,977. And I think it ended the year with cash balances of around $1.2 to $1.3 million. And it's my understanding that cash balance will end up being transferred to the general fund at some point during the current year. And Rhonda may be able to speak to that a little more than I can.
That is correct. We will be closing out that fund in December of this fiscal year, and that time it will then roll into the local operating fund balance.
So you don't have to answer it now, but what happens to all the depreciation assets that are listed throughout the different sections? There's a capital for childcare. Does that just get immediately written off with it being transferred? I mean, we don't have to, I'm just curious because I saw there's some that's being depreciated further in the report.
We'll follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions related to the child care program? If not, the next page, actually the next 3 pages, are another letter that we're required to issue, and we call it a required communications letter. And this letter basically covers areas that, as your auditors, were required to communicate with the board about. And it discusses that there were no difficulties or disagreements encountered in dealing with management during the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements noted during the audit, and that there were no significant reportable issues noted during the audit. Now, it does make reference to the 2 items that we just discussed on the previous management letter, but those were not considered to be significant reportable items. And that was pretty much all I planned to cover from the report. I think overall the audit went very smoothly. I think the district continues to be in good financial condition. And I think the finance department continues to do a great job of managing the finances of the district. Was there anything I didn't cover that y'all wanted to talk about?
Any questions from anyone? Bonnie?
Not a question, just a comment, just a big thank you. You know, it's funny when you think about a school district and you think about not just the special funds or the proprietary funds, but just the state funds and the local funds, or you call it the operating fund, but it just, to put that all together and to imagine that every payroll transaction, every expense transaction that goes through this district has to be managed in a way that's compliant with all the requirements over those funds. And I'm looking at Rhonda Rath going, thank you so much, you're amazing. And then with all of that, you know, you kept us off the ESSER cliff, you put controls over the fund balance, and we're I think, a healthier financial position than many, many school districts. So just thank you so much. And thank you for confirming that for us.
Thank you. I would just like to take the opportunity, as I always do, that all of the individuals in the schools, the school bookkeepers, the principals, and the entire finance team are the ones who make this possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all that you do, and thank you for doing the audit and presenting it tonight under not so usual circumstances, but we appreciate it, and thank you to you and your entire department, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have beginning of year data review with M-Class and Ames Webb and Miss Amber Wilson. Welcome.
All right, good evening. It is my pleasure to be back with you this evening to talk a little bit about our beginning of the year data for our kindergarten through 8th grade students in the areas of reading as well as math. So we're first going to start, click over here. The first set of data that we're going to talk about this evening is DIBELS 8. Which is the 8th edition of the assessment that we utilize, and it's also referenced as M-Class. So we use those terms interchangeably. I think I'm doing something wrong with the clicker, sorry. So DIBELS stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. It is a screener tool that we utilize to predict risk for reading. The screener helps us monitor the acquisition of foundational literacy skills that are required for our students to become a fluent reader. Each grade level has different measures that are required, and they go into a composite score for each student. The measures in DIBELS 8 are consistent throughout the year, so the assessments that the students take at the beginning of the year are the same at the middle of the year and the end of the year. That was a shift when we switched from the previous edition to DIBELS 8th edition. Currently, we are utilizing DIBELS 8 in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. We are excited to share that beginning in January of 2025, at our middle of the year assessment window, we will now have a consistent reading data set from kindergarten through 5th grade, as we will be adding the assessment of our 4th and 5th grade students with the DIBELS 8 measures. DIBELS 8 is also known to be how the kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers' EVAS scores are determined. So we are required to utilize DIBELS 8 as it is the assessment that is named by the state legislation with Read to Achieve. So here's an example of the data reports and how they are generated when we pull them at the district level. I recognize that these numbers and bars are really, really small. Don't worry, we're going to get into the data, and I'm going to provide you the actual information that is shown here in a chart format that's easier for you to read. I wanted you to see that the percent of Orange County school students that are not at risk with foundational reading skills is increasing from kindergarten to 3rd grade. The green and blue sections of the bars here each represent students that are at minimal to no risk of reading failure in the future. The red and yellow sections represent students that are at marginal and high risk for reading failure. Moving forward, when you see percentages of numbers, it represents the green and blue sections of these bars. So if I reference students that are proficient or on track to be skilled readers, that is the green and blue section. If I speak about students who are struggling readers or at-risk readers, that would be the yellow and red portions of these bars. For those of you that were here on the board when we began our journey with letters a few years ago, you may remember us talking about the reading rope and building it with pipe cleaners. It's important that we recognize that the reading rope is a visual representation or a graphical representation of the various strands and skills that are required for students to become skilled readers. Each of these are important, but they all must be intertwined and work together in order for a student to build the automaticity to become a skilled reader. Tonight, as we talk about our reading data, I would like to make sure that we make connections back to the research and we stay grounded here in terms of how students learn to read. So our OCS composite data is here for you by grade from DIBELS 8. Please note that the colors shown here for you, they show you the same group of students across multiple years. We call those cohorts. So as you move down the chart, you would follow that color the way the arrows are indicating. If you want to look at a grade level year to year, which is different groups of students, you would move straight across that row. So overall, Orange County Schools has stayed steady with our beginning of the year percentage of students that are not at risk from 2022 to 2024. Our cohort trends show that students are maintaining or exceeding their previous year's percentages. Kindergarten through first grade will continue to be an instructional focus to ensure that we are preventing gaps and establishing foundational skills for our students as early as possible. Here we're looking at the comparison of our student groups. The colors here are showing you years. So each color represents a different year, but the student groups are listed as you go down the chart. Overall, Orange County Schools has seen continued improvement with the number of students at risk via our DIBELS 8 screener data for all of our student groups over the past few years. Black students have seen the largest reduction in students at risk. There continues to be a gap between the percentage of students at risk who are Hispanic compared to our other student groups. Overall, Orange County Schools continues to see improvement of our students in the multilingual student group. However, our multilingual and EC students percent at risk continues to be the highest of our student groups that we monitor. And our multilingual learners are the student group with the most students at risk based on our beginning of the year data, and they are not experiencing the same rate of change as our other student groups. Here you can see the kindergarten through third grade composite data by school over the past few years. This slide allows you to see where students are coming in each year and how much growth students are making in their foundational skills as a result of the instruction that our teachers are providing each day in the classroom. So now we're going to zoom in and focus a little bit on the word recognition skills that are taught to mastery, as these are constrained skills. The goal is to build fluency and automaticity with these skills. So we're just going to focus on the bottom half of the rope for a minute. So DIBELS 8 has a phoneme segmentation fluency probe, which is the data that's reflected here for you. Phonemic awareness is one of the best predictors of a student's ability to learn to read fluently. Heggerty is the resource that we're using currently, and it is proving to be an effective resource for our teachers for teaching phonemic awareness for our kindergarten and our first grade students. And students are benefiting from the strong implementation of our Heggerty curriculum. The nonsense word fluency probe measures students' ability to decode unknown, also known as nonsense words. And Orange County Schools has seen double-digit increases in this measure across the 4-year span of BOY data that is shown here. Explicit phonics instruction utilizing Letterland, the University of Florida Literacy Institute, also known as UFLI, and structured literacy lessons from HMH, along with our decodable text implementation, is also proving to be effective. Now we're going to go to the top half of the reading rope, and we're going to talk about language comprehension. Here we're thinking about background knowledge, vocabulary, morphology, syntax, and literacy knowledge. Remember, comprehension is not an isolated skill, but rather it is a process that requires practice of reading complex text within explicit instruction that is strategically led and facilitated by our teachers. So the Maze probe measures the basic comprehension skills of our students. Orange County Schools has seen increases in this measure across the 4-year span as students progress from one grade level to the next. Utilizing HMH modules, which allows students to engage with complex text at the respective grade level to build background knowledge and vocabulary, will continue to be a focus as we move forward. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to look at our Ames Web Plus screener data. Currently, we utilize Ames Web Plus as a screener in grades 4 through 8 for reading and grades K through 8 for math. Just like Dibbles 8, Ames Web Plus is assessing foundational skills, not standards, so it is not necessarily predictive of success on EOG-style assessments. The Ames Web Plus data is used by teachers to make decisions for students about core instruction, as well as intervention or enrichment opportunities. It's important for you to remember that risk for Ames Web Plus is calculated at the 30th percentile. Data shows steady cohort increases for 4th and 5th grade, and 4th through 8th grade beginning of the year data shows a year-over-year increase for 4th, 7th, and 8th grade. The largest year-over-year growth has occurred in 4th and 7th grade. So about 39% of our 4th through 8th grade students are currently flagging as at risk in reading, according to this measure. Here you're looking at the math data comparison by grade year over year. In kindergarten through 5th grade, we see the increases for all grade levels. Year over year, the largest growth seen is in 3rd and 4th grade. And kindergarten and 1st grade show some regression, and 2nd grade remains pretty stagnant. Notice here that 4th and 5th grade data is repeated from the previous slide, but I felt that that was necessary in order for you to look at the cohort trend for those students as well through 8th grade. 4th through 8th grade BOI data shows inconsistent cohort trends here. Our largest growth is in 4th grade, with positive growth in 5th, 7th, and 8th as well. 6th grade shows some regression, which will continue to be a focus and aligns with our Priority 1 work that has previously been shared with you in strengthening the bridge from 5th to 6th grade in math. So about 43% of our kindergarten through 8th grade students are flagging as at risk in math. Our last set of data that we will look at for the beginning of the year data is our beginning of grade 3 assessment data, also known as the BOG. All 3rd grade students take the beginning of grade 3 assessment in the fall. This assessment is the baseline reading measure for 3rd grade, and it is used to measure growth for students and for teachers for their EVOS. The BOG assessment is also a way for students to satisfy the Read to Achieve legislation. The format is very similar to the EOG and is an assessment of 3rd grade standards, even though it's giving at the beginning of the year in 3rd grade. Here you can see the BOG data for this year, and the district data is in orange, and individual schools are represented in blue. This data is comparable to previous years as a district and for most of our schools individually. The BOG data gives us data on how our students are doing and provides an opportunity for them to experience the EOG testing environment. We are also able to use this data to make instructional decisions for core, as well as interventions and enrichment for our students. So some key takeaways and action steps in response to all of the data that we've reviewed this evening. We will continue to focus on the fidelity of core instruction as it is aligned with our instructional framework. We will also continue to ensure that we are providing rigorous and explicit instruction for our students, as that is what we know to be critical for their success. And we will continue to implement opportunities for early intervention, as we know that this is essential to close gaps. In combination with this data and our formative data, we have prioritized our work in some of the ways that are listed here. We will have a focus on Tier 2 support with core instruction, as well as targeted intervention. We will continue to move forward with our development of common formative assessments in partnership with our teachers. And we will ensure alignment of support and professional development from our leaders, our instructional coaches, all the way down to our teachers. And we will continue to conduct learning walks with our schools to monitor instruction and how that is impacting student learning. Beginning of the year data brings every level of our organization into action collectively in response to our students' needs. We have to ensure that we're working collectively to ensure that we're providing explicit and standards-aligned and differentiated core instruction, strategic Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, as well as enrichment opportunities for many students. We're empowering our school-based leaders to be the instructional leaders in their building, and we as district are here to support them in meeting their goals. Principals have set goals for their school, for their grade levels, for teachers, and for individual students. We look forward to continue to share with you updates on the progress that's being made across the district as we go throughout the year, and we have additional data sets ready for review. We've reviewed at a very high level a lot of data this evening. At this time, I will now open it up to you for any questions or feedback that you have for myself or for our team.
Any questions? Ms. Smiley?
Great, and thank you for this whole presentation and the way that you presented it. It's really helpful to look at the cohort data as well as broken out by the student groups, so thank you very much for all of that. And it is good to see these programs like take hold over time, you know, like the implementation of Heggerty and the effect that that is having. I have been thinking about, I've been wondering whether I think that M-Class, DIBELS, can be used as a screener for dyslexia. And I'm wondering if we use it in that way, and if there's any process in the district for sort of universal screening, so whether we do any universal screening for dyslexia in the district that sort of like triggers a like deeper evaluation.
So there are features within DIBELS 8 that, depending on how assessments are done, will trigger us to then follow up with additional assessments. So that dyslexia screener is embedded, and then based on the flags that appear through that assessment process, we then do additional layers of assessment as directed by the state in DIBELS 8 in the way it's written.
Okay, so that is something that we're doing right now. And like at what grade level does that start?
So it can start anywhere from kindergarten through third grade where we're using the assessment. And my assumption would be as we expand this to fourth and fifth, we'll see that similar flagging system.
Okay.
There's not yet been explicit direction given for how that will look, but that would be my assumption based on how it works for K-3.
Okay, because I understand that we use it for, you know, tiering and things like that. It's more of a like, how does this get flagged and identified early enough? So it'd be, yeah, just I'd be curious to like know a little bit more about how that actually works.
Okay.
At some other time, not right now. And then I've asked at some points about like the threshold we use for Ames Web. I think it's the 30th percentile, and I know it's a risk thing. And I know we have also introduced Mastery Connect, which is its own tool. My concern in the past had been by like looking at the 30th percentile, that it might not be triggering us to start doing tier 2 interventions with enough students. Is AimsWeb currently the thing being used to identify students for tier 2 and tier 3, or are we shifting to Mastery Connect? Like, how is that working?
So we use lots of data sets to do lots of things, right? So we take each of those data sets for the value that they bring to the conversation. But whenever PLCs are sitting to look at a student or even a grade level or a class, they're looking at multiple data points across time. AimsWeb is one of those data points. Mastery Connect, now that we have data, is one of those data points, along with common formative assessments, observational assessments that are done, and other formative data sets that teachers have. So AimsWeb is one piece of the puzzle. And to your point about the 30th percentile, we, whenever we are training and working with AimsWeb data, just as we made that point with you, we do the same thing with teachers. And the beauty of that dashboard is that we can go in and see what percentile they're in. And so we're not limited to just look at the students that are green, so to speak, by their color. We get way more into that data than that. That's just kind of high level.
Okay. And teachers, are they consistently looking at students like growth and progression over time, or are they mostly looking at that like point by point, Like, I think there's ability there to look at trend and whether you're growing fast enough to catch up.
So I think one of the benefits of the new goal setting that Dr. Jones and many of our cabinet leads have brought into the Orange County Schools District is when we set individual goals for students and we're monitoring the progress, we're not only looking at their growth, but we're looking at growth towards proficiency and how they're changing and making shifts in our course along the way based on all of those data points.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Ms. Dole?
Thank you so much for this presentation, Ms. Wilson. There's a lot in here. I'm looking at slide 18 with the math comparison by grade year over year. And following the cohorts and what you mentioned, that some of them, and not all, but some of them have like a decreasing percent of students at 30th percentile or higher. Yep, that's what I'm looking at. And so, like, for example, looking at the green cohort.
From sixth grade.
Yep, 66% sixth, and then 64 and 61. So that looks a little discouraging, but I guess one thing I'm wondering, is that is that showing loss of skills, or that they were at a higher percentage of mastering sixth grade skills than they were in seventh grade mastering seventh grade skills and in eighth grade mastering eighth grade skills? Are they losing skills?
I'm not going to say they're losing skills, but they're not progressing in the skills for the next grade level to not be considered at risk for attainment of those skills based on beginning of the year data.
So it's sort of like not, it could be other things, like we know it could have other factors, but so it's almost like not growing at the pace they need to grow at? Like, I mean, is that how, they're, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of how to put it into words of what that's indicating.
I think that's a good attempt. That would be, I think, appropriate verbiage there, is they're not growing at the same rate of the expectation for the next grade level. But remember that those cut points are different grade to grade. So we wouldn't say necessarily that they're losing skills, but they haven't necessarily acquired the skills at the same rate that the national norming would tell us would be appropriate. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hauser?
Yeah, thank you for this. I just was curious if you could tell us what went right for our Black students. Was that Hegarty and HMH? Is that? And then what are we not doing for our Hispanic students, or where could we reach out more effectively?
So I think that there's a couple layers to that. And I don't necessarily feel prepared tonight to answer that for you without those specific data points. I would tell you that we've had shifts in population, especially with our Hispanic and multilingual students. And I think that is a factor that's at play with the growth rate that we're seeing there. And we need to dig in further and look at individual students and the growth towards proficiency that's being made there.
Are we looking at specific grades, and are we looking at things like pre-K access? I'm especially concerned about that with our Hispanic students. But are we looking at those kinds of factors as well?
I'm not sure all of the pre-K data that's currently being considered. I am currently tracking the impact of attending pre-K and how that impacts how you perform on DIBELS assessments at the beginning of kindergarten to see kind of what impact that has, but I can definitely carry it back to the team and see what pre-K data is currently being
Yeah, I mean,
utilized.
exactly that question, is pre-K make a difference? And, you know, as you know, Ms. Wilson, I'm a big fan of your readiness program that we haven't seen.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, but anyway, I just curious, you know, just, this looks great, really. And there's a couple of, you know, this question about where are the holes and are there things we can do to fill them? Thank you so much.
And so I'll just add to that, because we are looking at all of our programming and all of the results that we've been getting or that we're not getting, and we're assessing it that way so that moving forward, when we make recommendations about programming, tutoring, pre-K, where we want to get a bigger return on the dollars that we're spending or the programs that we're setting up, we're using that data. So there's multiple pieces of data from multiple departments, and so that we'll be considering.
Thank you. Mr. Adler.
Thank you for pulling all this data together, and Dr. Jones, really appreciate you putting the data in front of us so we can really understand how we're doing and how our programs are affecting our students. I have a question following Ms. Stoll's question, and so the curiosity I have is, do we have the end of year for the math? Because, right, this is beginning, so they're not, this is how, where are they with the material when they start? And I think interesting data would be the comparison of the end of the year for all of these compared to the beginning of the year, right? To see where were they when they finished in that cohort to where they started in the new grade, because then we really see, you know, did they grow enough the prior year to have expected it to be, you know, of a significant impact for the starting. So if we do have that, I'd love to see that data in the math and the reading. Really appreciate seeing the cohort data so you can actually see the progression and they're starting, how they're starting off as well. So thank you for correlating that.
Absolutely. And we do have that data.
I would love if you could share it with us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Dole?
Thank you and your team for putting this presentation together. I had also similar as to Ms. Doyle, wondering as to why the drop in math, and also second and third grade when it comes to the phonics and comprehension. If we are assessing children early, I am wondering what is happening in between that is getting us results and not in a positive way, that there's a digression. So I'm looking forward to this individual plan that we're going to be creating for students, so they are able to have a more sustainable results. Because when we see these numbers, although there is improvement, we're still lacking. Thank you.
Thank you. I was looking also at slide 7, the comparison by student group with the risk of reading failure. And I remember a couple of years ago when our ML students and our EC students were at that similar percentage. Okay, yeah, the portion that was at a minimal risk was low for both those groups, right? The percentage that was at minimal risk. And so since like that 2022 beginning of year, lots of strides made, or some, some strides, because some bigger one year than another for exceptional children, and not as significant strides with ML, or also Hispanic students. And I'm thinking, like, this is still K-3, right? Because I'm thinking about young students, some of these ML students, kind of acquiring literacy in 2 languages, I'm guessing.
It varies. Some of our ML students come in with a solid command of language 1, and some do not come in with a solid command of their first language. So we're developing, it's easier if you have command of 1 language to then acquire the language 2. But when you don't have a solid first language, it makes it a little more challenging for that second language to kind of stick. But that definitely is something that we're working with our staff on across the organization for strategies to support our ML students, regardless of their current language skills, and how to differentiate that instruction based on what we know on the language skills that they have.
Okay, and so just to touch back on that, so if this, if the ML group, for example, is at only 27% or at minimal risk, is some of that almost age appropriate with learning 2 languages, and then it will improve? Or are those students then, as it's saying, they're at just greater risk of reading failure and it's harder to recover from?
I don't want to make the statement that it's age appropriate. It depends on where they are in acquisition of another language.
Right.
So research would tell us it's 5 to 8 years to acquire a new language and have proficiency. So when our students are, if they have, just come into the country, then they would be in a different place than a student who was born and raised here, but maybe in a home where they've only spoken Spanish or Mandarin or another language. So it varies. That blanket statement may or may not apply.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Smiley? Just one thought. If we are going to continue to use AimsWeb, I've been reflecting, we've gotten updates on this beginning, middle, end for like several years. And I've just been thinking about how the AimsWeb, those tiers is like not the most informative to me as a board member. Like it doesn't, I don't know what to quite to make of it, especially because it doesn't line up with the EOGs. And at one point I spoke with Ms. Myers about this, and I think there might be like reporting limitations, but I know that AimsWeb does have things that are like around students' rate of improvement, and I think school level growth, like I think there's things in AimsWeb that can tell you the whole school's rate of improvement or growth.
We look at student growth percentiles.
Yes, yeah. And there are just other measures that I think, I wonder if there is some way we can figure out, maybe with the AimsWeb people, how to report that out at like a district level or something, so we can sort of see, like, one of them is called like rate of improvement, and I think it's intended to be like, so you can monitor a specific student and see if their rate of improvement is strong. But I'd like to know as a board member, like, is our district-wide average of that number over 1 or below 1? 1 being like a year's worth of, you're on track for a year's worth of growth or whatever. So I spoke to Ms. Myers about it one time. I think that there were just like, their systems are not designed to tell us that, but I would love for us to like look at that again. Because I just think that the risk categories, to me, I just don't know over time that we're like really getting as much as we could out of it as a board. So.
Anyone else? Ms. Padilla, did you have something else?
I changed my mind.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Wilson, for this. And it's very nice to see all the ways that you all are looking at data and analyzing data and strengthening our students and helping our students. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay. We are down to Ms. Pitts with community eligibility provision. First quarter update.
So good evening, members of the board, Dr. Jones, Orange County Schools colleagues, and members of the public who are in person or streaming this meeting tonight. It is my pleasure to present to you a Q1 update relating to July 1st to September 30th regarding the Community Eligibility Program. Yep, it's not working for me. Oh, here we go. So, thanks to the district's participation in the Community Eligibility Provision Program, the school nutrition program is experiencing an overall revenue increase for Q1. But most importantly, participation in the program has resulted in more students consuming well-balanced, nutritional school meals and being ready to learn throughout the school day. The Community Eligibility Provision, from here on related and referred to as CEP, allows eligible schools to serve breakfast and lunch to all students who are attending approved schools at no cost to families, regardless of the household income. CEP has been shown to increase meal participation and supports the whole child approach to learning. CEP is a school meal funding option of the National School Lunch Program. And once a school or group of schools is approved, the status can remain in effect for up to a 4-year cycle. Thank you. So just like textbooks and desks, under CEP, school meals, which I think are a much needed daily school supply, are available to all students at no cost to them at participating schools. Schools receive funding based on a formula that relies on data from other school sources. So again, families no longer have to submit meal applications and report their household income. Under CEP, meal claiming percentages for the federal reimbursement rate are determined by taking the number of identified students, which are those students identified by the state as receiving benefits from an approved program, such as the Supplemental Nutritional Program, also called SNAP, by a factor of 1.6 to derive the percentages of meals reimbursed at the no-cost federal rates. In order for a school or grouping of schools to be reimbursed for all meals served at the 100% no-cost rate, the identified student population must be 65% or greater. As an identified student population of 62.5 times the 1.6 equals the 100% rate. So when the ISP is less than 62.5, the remaining percentage of those meals will be reimbursed at the paid federal status rate. Under CEP, a district can elect for an individual school or grouping of schools together to meet the ISP threshold if those schools do not meet it individually. So as a reminder, for school year 24-25, Orange County Schools approved partnership to remain as a single school with 100% of the meals being reimbursed at the no-cost rate, and grouped Central, Efland, and New Hope together. The ISP for the grouping of these elementary schools had to be adjusted at the end of the school year due to changes in a couple of students' statuses. And the ISP was approved by the state at 94.06% of the meals reimbursed at the federal no-cost rate and 5.9% at the paid rate. The chart on this slide refers to the CEP no-cost and the paid status reimbursement rates, along with the total reimbursement rate for paid status students under the traditional claiming method. So note the paid status only includes the federal reimbursement rate paid for lunch and breakfast. So it's increasingly important that we, as Child Nutrition, do things to increase our students who are participating in our Group 1 schools in their meal participation in order to cover the loss in this revenue. It's also important to note that the total reimbursement rate for paid lunches under the traditional method is $1.26 less than that of the reimbursement rate for lunch at the no-cost rate in CEP. The $3.19 is derived from the $2.75 cost to our elementary families, plus the 44-cent reimbursement rate for our paid student meals. So let's take a deeper dive into the Q1 participation and reimbursement data. And I don't know if you're doing it, Kevin, or am I? So first, let's review student meal participation as a result of CEP. Student meal participation refers to the total number of meals served as part of the school lunch, school breakfast program. For quarter one, we are analyzing meal participation from July 1st to September 30th. So for our 4 elected CEP schools that are on traditional operating calendars, this means that we're referring to August 26th through September 30th. To determine the student meal participation percentage, the number of meals served for breakfast and lunch daily is divided by the average daily attendance, or the number of students that were present that day for that site. The student meal participation percentage is based on attendance, and it allows for us to compare the same defined period in different school years, even if the operating days are not the same, to see how participation varies. So the positive difference noted on the graph is the participation increase observed at each site based on meal type. Providing meals to students at no cost to them per CEP resulted in an overall increase in student participation for quarter one for all 4 sites. The bottom line is that more students had access to the food they need to feed their bellies and fuel their brains. Looking at a comparison at the reimbursement rates based on claiming rates of CEP versus traditional non-CEP claiming rates, electing to participate in the community eligibility provision resulted in an increase in revenue of $5,077 for the first 24 days of the school year for the 3 CEP elementary sites. The increase in revenue, along with the measures to be discussed in future slides, have resulted in the school nutrition program being revenue net positive at the end of quarter one. For the traditional method of reimbursement, the demographics for the end of school year 23-24 were utilized, as CEP schools are not currently collecting family meal applications. Participation in the community eligibility provision promotes equity by eliminating the out-of-pocket costs for our OCS families and by reducing the stigma of the school meal program. The following are additional benefits observed by participating in the CEP program. Increase in the overall student participation at CEP school sites. By providing meals at no cost to families, students were able to try new foods that they wouldn't have otherwise tried if they had to pay for them. And the overall increased student meal participation allows for more students to experience the increased health and resulting educational benefits of school meals. We also observed an increase in supplemental sales. When families are no longer concerned with how to afford school meals, they have extra funds to spend on additional items. In this case, supplemental sales refers to extra food items such as entrees and milk, along with smart snacks, which are available for purchase. Supplemental sales at the 4 CEP schools have increased compared to last year, meaning that our students had extra funds to purchase the food they needed to feel full and ready to learn. It also improves our school culture. Students are no longer likely to feel stigmatized by their meal status as more students are eating daily, right? It's hard to identify who needs to eat and who wants to eat. So in reduction of the district's unpaid student meal debt, as there are no longer charges occurring at those 4 CEP sites. And CEP participation simplifies the program administration at both the office and in the cafeteria school sites. It allows for more efficient meal operations and makes it easier to implement the more innovative breakfast options, such as the grab-and-go breakfast option and the kiosks in the hallway. The school meal program, or the school nutrition program, has really been working hard to increase overall student participation district-wide by focusing on the following items. Our marketing and outreach efforts at both CEP and non-CEP school sites. For CEP sites, communication was sent to families to ensure that they understood the benefits of the program. Also, staff were available at open houses to answer any questions that the family may have. District-wide, communication has been directed to families regarding school nutrition program offerings, family meal applications, access to forms that the family may need, and ensuring that families have access to menus in multiple formats and in multiple languages. We're also being strategic about our menu planning. We're ensuring that the items that appear on the menu reflect our student preferences. Cafeteria managers will continue to include and engage our students in our menu planning process. We've also adjusted our meal packaging, so meal or meal components are packaged in a manner which is convenient. The food inside is visually appealing, and the food items are easy to consume. And this is especially important at our secondary sites, as our students really need to grab and go and take those meals to receive either additional learning or just to go eat somewhere else. And we are also aligning our menu to utilize the same products and reduce our overall inventory. We're conducting menu sampling of new items or our items where the recipes may have been adjusted. This allows our students to try the new or newly improved food items prior to them being placed on the menu. And it provides our students additional feedback opportunities to comment on how recipes can be adjusted to align with both their tastes or current market trends. We're also aligning our workforce with key performance indicators. We're continually monitoring our KPIs to make adjustments as needed to both our efficiency and effectiveness, such as reducing our staffing costs, continually training our staff to ensure performance aligns with best practices, and to utilize and maximize our commodity foods to decrease our overall plate costs. I would like to take this time to thank the school nutrition staff for their hard work and commitment, and for embracing some of these changes that we've made, because they have been hard, to ensure that the program is best supporting our students and that the students have access to the meals that they need. Other items which are impacting our current school nutrition budget include the revenue from the summer feeding program and the cost savings due to our current unfilled positions this year. So this concludes the Q1 CEP update presentation. At this time, I'd like to welcome any questions or feedback that you may have regarding the community eligibility program.
Ms. Dole?
I just have a question. Thank you, Ms. Pitts. I think this is really great. I appreciate the report and the overview. You made me think when you were talking about the recipe changes. I know we've had the conversation at times about, and I'm reaching back in my memory, so you're gonna have to correct me, but we talked about like what opportunities there actually were for cooking rather than, you know, I don't know if like reheating is the right, you know, there was like less opportunity for real cooking and trying things out. So if you're actually getting to adjust recipes, does that mean that there's more cooking happening in schools? Like, what does that look like? Can you give me an example?
So I will say, right, to best answer your question, it's really hard to go from the traditional style of just taking things out and heating them to actually scratch cooking. So we're adjusting our menus to be more of a speed scratch cooking. So maybe it's taking items that are already prepared or we bought commercially and putting them with other items to allow for more homemade items. So I will say, like, take spaghetti, for instance, right? Instead of taking spaghetti, which is the noodles come from the supplier and the sauce comes from the supplier, we're now doing things like cooking the meat, adding it to the sauce, allowing it to simmer, and then putting it onto the spaghetti itself, which gives a much better flavor, right? Makes it taste more like what you may get at home. So things like that. Same thing with tacos. And build your own burrito bowls, right? Instead of taking just pre-made taco meat or fajita meat, we're taking the meat that we can get, cooking it, putting it with our own sauces just to change the flavor. So we would like to get to scratch cooking, a little more scratch cooking. Unfortunately, that comes with an increased cost in staff and may require that some of our outdated equipment be upgraded and replaced, which will take some budgeting.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Atherton?
So thank you so much for all the detail and the specifics on it. I'm curious, at one point we were looking at farm to table kind of items. How would this be impacted by some of those possibilities? I know that we've looked locally and throughout to look at, you know, not just changing, but maybe more fruits, vegetables, kind of sourcing local. So any impacts that you're seeing, positive or negative, with this?
So we still have money left over from our local Food for Schools grant, which we're currently utilizing. You'll see on the upcoming menu, our middle school and high school is going to have locally sourced beef as part of their options for hamburgers. We are also utilizing more of those items to, like you said, create and purchase more of our local items, which come at a much higher cost. I'm currently in the process of meeting with a representative from Orange County and also a representative from Durham Public Schools to look at how we can all source and maybe come up with recipes that are supporting more local food items with CEP. And if we can increase revenue and increase participation, of course, then we can look at more of those items because the locally sourced tend to come at a higher cost. But we have been working towards increasing those, yes.
Excellent. I think, getting the word out to our families of when we get to that point of the change, so they know, because the students themselves obviously may not realize the difference. So thank you.
I think it's important too for us to focus more on our campaigning so the families are aware of those items.
Thank you.
Ms. Hauser?
Yeah, thanks for this. Really great to see the increased participation rate. Really good work. What's the difference between the current participation rate and 100%? Who are those kids? Because now everything in the CEP schools, it's all 100% reimbursed, correct? And
It's, well, not 100%, no, 94.05 is reimbursed at the higher rate, and the rest is at the
okay,
lower paid rate.
so who is this other 40% or so that aren't eating? Who are they?
Well, I think it depends on the day, right? There are just some students where you may have a picky child like mine who only wants to eat the same thing over and over, and unfortunately, it's not something that we offer in our current school meals. And the other is, that's why we're doing this marketing, right? That's why we're trying to do taste testing. That's why we're trying to get the input from our students, because we want to increase, we want to reach those students. So allowing the CEP and the trying of food at no cost is where we're currently seeing that increase. And staff are really focusing on what students we're not reaching and making sure that A, we can take those samples to them, and B, asking them, going out during meal service and talking to those students who may be packing their lunch boxes and saying, what could we do to get you to participate? Have you tried a school meal lately? So hopefully we'll reach to those students. Unfortunately, even if meals are free, we may not get every student to eat.
So, but cost is no longer an obstacle, right?
Well, cost is always an obstacle based on our bid and how we have to go.
Oh, I mean for the kids. For
Yes,
the kids.
yes, correct. Yes, you are
The
correct.
meals are available if they want it, they know it's there, and so we just have to have a conversation with your child, is that what? So that's pretty fantastic. The grab and goes that you spoke about, those are not CEPs, those are just, you're making that available in all, those are our secondary schools? That's
Yes.
also fantastic.
Yes.
So big shift, and I really hope, because the kids have been, had trouble with the line, so now, bam, that's fantastic, so thank you for that. Last time we talked about this, I don't know if you remember, the free and reduced lunch forms have been an anchor for us in terms of how many kids we count as economically disadvantaged. So how do we count that? And that was a question that came up last time. How do we count that now? And it's important for our end of grade scores and some other things, but how do we count that?
So for our demographics, the students that are directly certified will be counted in our traditional demographic report that's pulled by Meals Plus. The only thing that it will not capture are those students who may be eligible based on income, who do not have a sibling at another school site. I would have to dig a little further to speak with Ms. Wagner, but my understanding is that we can use the ISP and CEP data for our eligible schools when we do that end-of-year reporting for them.
Does that mean 100% of the kids would be counted as, or 92, whatever the 90-something percent?
We can look at the school's individual ISP, yeah. So not the grouping together, but what the individual school has eligible, yes.
Yeah, I think we need to.
And that would be without the multiplier, right? They would just look at the ISP.
Right, we're just trying to really understand. I think it's a basic statistic about our population, and it's important because it's changing, right? So we really need to know what, and it's a basis for our Title I funding, it's a basis for other asks. So it's important for us to understand what that is.
Yep, I think as of today, our demographics for 47.97%.
Does that include the CEP students?
And it's tracking very closely to our demographics this time last year.
Oh, because I thought last year we were over 50%.
We were at the end of the year.
Okay.
Ms. Molly?
Yeah, just following up on that point, and this may not actually be something for you, it may be something more for Dr. Jones and Ms. Wagner, but I think the following up on that, like we're going to need student level identification of economically disadvantaged students, because that's how they get in EOGs, like percent proficiency, for grade 3, for, that kind of thing. And so since we're not able to get that accurately through free and reduced price lunch here, we have to make sure that we have another way to do that, to be working accurately. I know DPI allows you to create other methods, so we just need something that we can consistently collect that data. Once we have that set up, I would love to know how we're going to do that. That feels, really important to make sure that we're understanding. And I'm sure we don't need to reinvent the wheel because we're not the first district to do CEP. And these are great numbers. Like this, it's really great to see the increase in participation. What I found really fascinating was the increase in participation for breakfast at the elementary schools, which was already free for all of the students. Like that is like fascinating to me. I'm like, wow, maybe that's the like reduction of stigma thing or something, because it was already free for those students. So I would also be curious to know, at some point years ago, the district decided to spend like $100,000 a year in local funds on free breakfast at all the elementary schools. So if this is covering free breakfast at half of the elementary schools, is that cost savings then something that can be utilized for something else, either to support child nutrition or something else? I don't know, but hopefully we're able to realize some savings also there over the course of the year.
Ms. Padilla, did you have your hand up?
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that children are eating so they can learn. It's I was just curious, what happens to the food that is not used?
So it depends. If it is food that is not used, that has been held back in the back, where we can put it in the freezer, right? Freeze it, use it for the same menu cycle coming forward, or take it for an additional item for the next day's lunch. If it goes on the line and it has maybe not been able to hold temp, or it was packaged, we have to discard that. So it actually depends on the type of food to what happens to it.
Yeah,
Most of it gets reused, some of it gets discarded, and I can tell you, we currently track our waste to make sure that we are being very, very, very efficient.
That was my next question. Like, do you know how much food is being wasted? I'm curious, but it's not something that you need to do. And I know everybody's talking about being self-sustained, and we should do farm to table. That's a great idea, but maybe we should grow our own fruits and vegetables out of school so children can learn how to grow their own food and be self-sustained and empowered that way.
I would like to add, Ms. Pitts, looking at it from the principal standpoint, thank you for taking away the stigmatism that so many children faced every day with not being able to eat. I appreciate you working on that. And I also appreciate the fact that you're asking the children what they want to eat, because not every child wants what you offer. I have a grandson who I'm sure has never eaten a meal in a school yet. So if you could find something he could eat, I think that would be great. But I appreciate you asking the children. I think that empowers them.
And it has been very entertaining to hear responses.
It has.
And we have had some really, really creative menu suggestions that we're hoping that we can put those, on future menus. They may take a little tweaking, but we hope to see them in the future.
I think if you can, that will speak volumes to the children. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that a lot. Any other questions from anyone? Comments? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. All right. right, as I am beginning to lose my voice, I think it is time that I say, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.